Hey everybody, today we're back and comparing two very differently sized citramellos here. So on my left we have the Sacaton Citrumelo, and on my right we have the 5-star Citrumelo. Now not only do these differ quite greatly in size, which I thought would be a pretty cool contrast here, but they're also very different in terms of accessibility. Sacaton Citrumelo is much easier to find in the US. You can find seeds relatively easily, as well as the plants are being more widely grown. And of course, you can get both the fruit with the seeds, of course, budwood, and sometimes plants from Stan Mackenzie's. Now, the 5-star Citrumelo originates from Europe, supposedly as a swingle seedling, so we don't know if this was some sort of open pollinated hybrid or it just expressed itself a little different, or if it's even related to swingle at all. I'm not entirely too sure on the exact origin of 5-star Citrumelo, but it's said to be a very hardy citrumelo and also an improvement in taste beyond regular swingle. So if you were to compare swingle and 5-star, this is supposed to taste a little bit better at least. But very cool to have this. This is another one from Pennsylvania here. So we're comparing fruits from two very different regions, very different sizes, and levels of accessibility too. But I think this is going to be a very cool comparison. So let's take a look first at the most notable thing here, which is the size of these fruits. So 5-star wouldn't normally look so small. It's actually what I'd say is probably going to be a medium fruit based on its size and its weight, which is correct. That is, we'll say 109 grams. And this fruit is more typical of what you'd see with a 5-star, but it does produce smaller fruit too. I did have some that were even smaller than this in our little batch of test fruit. Now we have 5-star, or Sacaton here, and that's topping the scale at 400 grams, and this was also a pretty average fruit for the group here. So we'll put that to 402 grams. So Sacaton is massive, and in my experience, between its size and its weight, it's probably the largest hardy citrus that I've had experience with. It's not quite pomelo size yet, but it's definitely the size of like a pretty healthy grapefruit at the grocery store. You know, if you picked a nice big one, and it has some weight to it, so it's definitely full of juice. As for 5-star, it's hard to compare after feeling that one, but I will say both of these fruits are very attractive on the trees when you see photos of them. 5-star you can find online, and of course Sacaton you can see anywhere. A lot of the pictures come from Stan Mackenzie's farm. The trees are beautiful with all of these massive grapefruits in them basically, and 5-star especially. The fruit are very attractive and bright yellow, and sometimes you'll see them in very nice clusters, but it almost looks like kind of similar to a very attractive orange tree, except it's producing citrumelos. But that's probably the closest it reminds me of, is maybe an orange tree. So I really like the appearance of 5-star when I've seen it online, and we have a lot of these growing, so I'm hoping this one, this sample tastes particularly good, and I can feel justified in growing so many, because I do want to make this one a little bit more available over time. So let's get into the zest before we cut these things open and kind of compare that. So we'll go first on the Sacaton here. Let's find a nice spot. And we'll get some of that smell here. Yeah, it's a mix of, this is another one of those where it's like a 50-50 mix of grapefruit and trifoliate. And let's see the taste. That's not too bad. A little bitter on the back end, but that makes sense for these. Not completely useless. This may be similar to Dunstan, maybe slightly below Dunstan. I forget where I put Dunstan, so I'm just going to put like -1 Dunstan. Just so I know, it's probably a little below that, but not completely useless. You could still probably use it more than like a trifoliate orange, but it's quite bitter. But then again, so is grapefruit too. I'm not a huge fan of using grapefruit zest for much of anything, but if you have uses for it, then maybe you'll find that useful too. But let's get into 5-star now. Interesting. I want to say that has a similar smell, but it is different. This one you definitely very grapefruity. There's something different about this. Forgive me for taking my time with this, but I don't quite know what this smells like. It's hard to tell. I mean, it definitely has that grapefruit trifoliate thing going, but maybe there's like a touch of lemon, but not like a very strong lemon, a very subdued lemon. It's milder in smell. It doesn't hit you like a grapefruit does, but it doesn't smell bad either. It has a pleasant citrusy smell to it, but again, that is in combination with some of that trifoliate smell, which we always describe as being a bit floral, which grapefruits can be, but trifoliate floral is a bit different, and it does have some of those like piney notes in it too. So let's see, we'll get a paper towel here and wipe off our knife, and I think we are okay to go into the cutting of these fruit. I'm going to build up the anticipation for 5-star here, so we'll go Sacaton first, which if you've seen in a past review, we have reviewed this fruit before, and right now we have it at a stage of ripeness that's less than when we originally picked these, so I'm not sure if this is going to be better or worse. I found Dunstan to be superior at the stage where you still have like a little green on the fruit, and we have some Dunstans that we're enjoying like that right now, but I haven't tried Sacaton at this stage, so we're going to see if this is better or worse than in the past. And this is a juicy one, as you could tell. Look at that. Sacaton's one of those fruits where visually it's quite stunning. I mean, it looks like a beautiful white grapefruit. Most store-bought grapefruits and pomelos that I've seen, unless they truly are seedless, they look like this on the inside. Very, very similar. Wow. Yeah, Sacaton has a nice smell when you cut it open. That's kind of the case with some of these, is sometimes that smell from the pulp and the juice really improves it beyond just the zest on the outside. Yeah, ooh, wow. That smells like a nice fruit. That's a fruit that I want to eat. So that's very good there. In terms of seeds, it is quite moderately seedy, if not a little bit more. Moderately seedy. Give that a little plus sign, because it's not like very, very seedy where it's chock full of seeds, but it's got a good amount in there for sure. I mean, you can grow quite a lot of plants off of this. And for those curious who like growing their trees from seed, and especially if you like a lot of unique variations in your seedlings, which I sure do, Sacaton is a great choice. If you can get your hands on some fruit or even bulk seed, I do think this is one that has a lot of potential for a hardiness trial, similar to what we've seen on the forums kind of happening now. Sacaton is a really good choice. A lot of the seedlings vary. There's a lot of zygotic seedlings in the mix, and we've been selecting a lot of unifoliate ones, and a lot that seem to have hybridized with stuff nearby. So just wanted to point that out. This is a really good parent citrus, I guess, for potential crosses. So that's Sacaton on the side there. Very happy with the smell and the look of that fruit. That's one that you could show to anyone and they would find that to be an attractive fruit. You know, maybe the seeds are a little off-putting to some, but that's a very nice fruit. So we will do the 5-star now. This is going to be really cool to see these side by side. Oh, I think I messed that cut up. Okay. It's a little harder going from those differently sized fruit. This is also quite a juicy one for its size. And look at that. I gotta say 5-star. Ooh, it smells good. Similar but different. Now you get more of the grapefruit smell. But again, you get some of that lemon too, and I gotta say, even the inside looks more like a lemon. I don't know how well you can tell these side by side in terms of the color and the seeds. Take a look at that difference there. So this is very interesting, and I wonder if this hints at the potential nature of this fruit. 5-star Citrumelo has narrower, kind of paler looking seeds. Sacaton Citrumelo has these large, broad seeds that are a bit darker in color. So we're just going to get some out to compare here. So look at that difference and tell me what you think. Obviously you can tell both of these have grapefruit in them, but you'd almost think, and maybe there's a reason why this tree and its fruit look a bit different from some of the other Citrumelos. I don't know if it's bringing out something else in it. There is more in this. There is, distant, mandarin and orange and things like that. So I don't know if that's coming out because the fruit, the foliage, the seeds all look a little bit different than I'm used to with the Citrumelos. But they're still similar. You can see different colors, a little different shape and size. Very interesting to see that. Also just differently sized fruit, so that could really contribute here. It's also possible that the seed that grew 5-star, resulting from open pollination or whatever happened, it's possible that maybe the pollen donor was a different citrus. Maybe it was like a citrandarin or something random that kind of gave it some different qualities. We could speculate about that, but basically, these are very different looking fruit. So that's pretty cool to see, and they both smell great. Yeah, I quite like the smell of both. I think Sacaton smells a little bit better. However, they're also different in smell too. And if I didn't smell one before the other, cut open, both of these smell really good. So that's one thing we should test too. Peelability, if we get any kind of... Oh, well, you know what? That's the first time probably I've done this to a Citrumelo and it actually gave in a bit. So I don't know if you could see, Sacaton is actually somewhat peelable. Now let's see 5-star. Less. Definitely less. Squeezes a bit more. Get some interesting colors there. But yeah, Sacaton is surprisingly easy to peel. I didn't expect that. So I'm going to say, what do we say, like fairly peelable? Like you could. That was actually easier than a navel orange. I mean, navel oranges are difficult to peel, but they're not impossible. I was able to free that pretty easy. Whereas, whoops, I think I have these switched here. I'm going to be doing this here. Let's switch these fruit so I don't keep doing this. Because now we're going to have to put these on this side. So fairly peelable. Moderately seedy. And actually 5-star seems to have quite a bit less seeds. I don't want to say it has like very few seeds, but it's kind of like moderate to few. Like somewhere in that ballpark. But it's a lot less. That's probably as many seeds as you'd get in like a seedy lemon. So if it wasn't a seedless lemon, that's probably what you'd see. Both of these are very juicy. I've always known that about Sacaton. You could squeeze one of these and get a ton of juice from them. As for 5-star, it looks about as juicy as a lemon. So still very juicy too. Both of these were dripping juice as I was cutting them, which is definitely a good sign of that right there. So we can go into the taste test now. So this is exciting. I'm actually going to go 5-star first because these fruit take up so much space on the cutting board. Because I haven't tested this one yet. So I want to get a nice, unbiased first taste here. I do really like the appearance of 5-star, just as a fruit. When you slice it, the separation there, the peel color, the look of the fruit, the smell is pretty good. So let's give that a taste and let's see. Okay. That's not bad. So obviously it's got a little bitter finish. Kind of typical of a grapefruit. A little more pininess in it from the trifoliate. That's the only thing. These do taste very similar to grapefruits, but you'll notice a little extra element of something in there. And that's from the trifoliate. But it's very easily confused. Yeah, it's interesting. I would say the taste probably isn't far off from a Swingle. This almost tastes like a cross between Swingle and Dunstan. It does have quite a bit of bitterness. So this is more like I don't know if it's as bitter as a white grapefruit. I gotta say, some store-bought grapefruit are still more bitter than these fruits. It's quite shocking. But it's somewhere in that ballpark. But yeah, between Dunstan and Swingle in terms of taste, so maybe this is an improvement over Swingle. Yeah, that initial taste is pretty good. I like that. So it's got like that lemon, that grapefruit lemon taste, similarly to Swingle, and that's kind of what I got for the aroma too. Is that grapefruit, lemon, and of course that pine, and like that floral aspect. I don't know if I got a whole lot of orange in the smell or taste. Like, there's maybe a hint of it in there, but pretty minor. But so far it is similar to Swingle in some ways, so I could see if this was a seedling or a cross with Swingle, that would make sense. I think I got a little preoccupied and I didn't even think about the sourness, sweetness, or anything. I'm enjoying this too much, but let's see. Last one, and then you guys don't have to see me eat this anymore. It's sour, but not overbearing. But keep in mind with these sourness ratings too, or the tartness, however you describe it. Generally, these are going to be maybe a touch lower for me than it would be for someone who doesn't like acidic citrus as much. I have a pretty good tolerance for acid, and I quite enjoy fruit with acidity in them. I think it gives them a good layer of complexity and flavor. It really brings out some stuff in them, so that may bias this. And same with the bitterness too. I have a better tolerance for bitterness than I did when I was younger, so keep that in mind as well. But bitterness is pretty moderate or so. I might even say moderate plus. So it's definitely above average in terms of bitterness. But I think for a grapefruit type of fruit, that's perfectly okay. Sweetness, there might have been a little. Yeah. There is some sweetness. It's in there. That's definitely not bad. Trifoliateness, probably moderate. I mean, the fruit itself doesn't look a whole lot like one, actually. Both inside and out, this is definitely further away from a trifoliate than some of the other fruit that we've tested. In terms of edibility, I'd say it's fairly edible. I think this will make a great juice, which I'm definitely going to try with it. Definitely a really good aid. If you like lemon and grapefruit, those types of citrus, this is going to be a really good one. So, juice and jelly. Pretty typical uses for a lot of these sour, hardy citrus. Let's get a Brix reading on this. And you know what, we'll use our little pH strip. Pretty much every video, these have been the same reading anyway, but you never know, maybe one of these we're going to get something a little different. We'll put that off to the side. All right, our Brix refractometer. Alrighty. Got a good sample there. Okay, and Brix is reading at a 10. So that's not bad, considering it has some sweetness too. I'd almost like to say more of that is sugar. And surprise, surprise, our pH strip is reading pretty close to a 3. So we will test that after the video with the pH meter and verify specifically what it is, if it's a little above or a little below a 3. But that's pretty good for 5-star. I'm definitely happy with the taste test and happy with the fruit. And 5-star has been a pretty vigorous grower for us, and it also seems like a precocious flowerer. I've had grafts that flowered pretty early on, so it definitely seems more willing to flower than other varieties. And on top of being a vigorous grower, it may have good rootstock potential as well. So I'm going to see how these do on their own roots, but definitely grown out some seedlings, and if we get some good takes, then we'll have some 5-star available too, which is really cool. That's going to add to a lot of people's collections, because a lot of you may already have Sacaton, Swingle, Dunstan, types like that, but 5-star is really hard to find, and this is really only possible, again, because of Mel's efforts to bring these fruit over, spend all the time waiting for them to fruit. And this one, I believe, was actually precocious in fruiting too. I think he had a 5-star that fruited in 3 years from seed, which is definitely on the low end of the spectrum. I mean, some can be even quicker, but generally speaking, 3 years is a very acceptable timeline for a seedling to fruit. So that's quite incredible, especially in a colder zone with a shorter season. Even with a greenhouse or anything, that's awesome. So 5-star just seems to have a lot of potential. I have heard, though, for breeding, it may not breed the best fruit, just because a lot of the fruit tend to be more bitter and seedy. Now, that doesn't mean it's impossible, but it may just be limited in that aspect, and it may just be worth appreciating the fruit for what it is, or trying to use it as a rootstock. But definitely a very ornamental and fairly good tasting grapefruit for colder zones. And I do believe this is a zone 7 hardy, maybe a warm zone 6, but for certain zone 7 this seems very possible. So that's good. So now we can get into tasting our Sacaton, which I forget, it's been a while, but I think last time I tried this, I got some pretty interesting like orange flavors in it, like sour orange. We're going to see if that's still the case, or if it was just the fruit and the stage that I had it at. I want to make sure we don't cut any seeds that we don't have to. Alright, cutting multiple pieces because I know I'm going to be going back in. And that's another very attractive cross-section there. Again, Sacaton's a good-looking and very large fruit, which gives it a lot of points there, because if fruit can be very large and taste good, all the better, really. Each serving, you get just so much. That's why pomelos are one of my favorite fruits for that. And there's some very edible varieties. Over at Stan's, he has a Chinese pomelo tree, and it's probably the best tasting pomelo I've ever had. A lot of the Chinese pomelos are just perfectly balanced in flavor, and they're massive fruit at the same time. They're really, really good. So let's try our Sacaton here and see what that's like. That's quite good initially. Yeah, it's on the back end. It's like less piney than 5-star with the aftertaste, but almost more metallic maybe, having these side by side. There is a difference with all these fruits aftertastes. Some of them you get more of that noticeable pine / grapefruity. Sacaton, I notice, is different from some of the other Citrumelos in that its aftertaste isn't exactly grapefruit-like. It's not bad. It's quite good initially. The initial bite's pleasant. And then you do get, I am tasting now, so that's consistent. You do get the sour orange in there. As for the aroma, that's a hard one to describe. But you know what? Let's go bitterness, sweetness, sourness, all that stuff, and then we'll kind of figure that out along the way. So let me give this another bite. That's one thing I remember about Sacaton, even at this stage. It's only like fairly sour. It's milder than Dunstan or Swinkle. Does have some sweetness. Has a moderate amount of bitterness, but you would think it would be a little more actually. It's definitely less than 5-star. And I'm actually biting into these pretty good. And I like testing that almost. Because if I could feel kind of biting all around here, and my teeth aren't coming up too bad, then that's a pretty good sign for these. That's a good fruit. I remember this one makes a good juice too. Trifoliateness, I want to say, we'll also put it at moderate. But honestly, for both of these, they're on the lower ends of the spectrum when it comes to influence from the trifoliate orange. It's not bad. And you know, I just realized when it came to the zest, I think I tried the zest to that. I think it wasn't bad. Right? It was that. I think it was -1 from Dunstan. I might have to go back and test the taste of the zest on 5-star just after we do some of this stuff quick. But yeah, the aroma on the Sacaton is hard to describe. It's like you do just you get a little trifoliate, a good bit of grapefruit. I think sour orange, which again is different from like normal orange, a true sour orange, is probably one of the bigger ones at play here. I'm going to have to think about this one a little bit more after the video, and then I'll update the score sheet, of course, which you'll see in the same video. Sacaton is a harder one to figure out in terms of taste and aroma, but so far the taste is quite pleasant. It's not bad for a grapefruit type of fruit at all. And the peelability is a nice bonus that I didn't even realize. And in terms of like, let me see if you ate these segments. I'm gonna eat this and see if there's any bitterness there, because if you ate these all together, that's what you'd be getting, is some of this in there too. That's not bitter. Wow. Yeah, that's surprising. Who thought? I mean, I might do it to a different fruit, but who thought you could peel and eat Sacaton like an orange? I mean, I certainly didn't expect that. I mean, this is a fruit you could literally peel off and eat the segments whole. The only thing that you might have to deal with is if you break these segments, it's very juicy. So it's going to be a huge mess on your hands. So while you could, I don't know necessarily if you should. But in terms of uses, juice and jelly makes sense for this one too. When we say juice, by the way, that could be anything between just consuming the juice raw and using it in that form, or processing it and using it for an aid type of drink, like a citrus aid or a lemonade. But you could use these for pies and things like that too. Liquor as well, if you want to use the juice for that in any mixed drinks. It could be quite pleasant too. So we'll get a Brix reading on here, and you know what? Quick pH strip. We already know the deal with this, but doesn't hurt. Just for the video, and we'll get a better reading after. Okay, this is going to be a little challenging. I might have to scrape some seeds out first. Just because so many of these fall out when you squeeze this fruit. Alright, we got a really nice sample there. There we go. Let's take a look. And that is coming in at 9.5. So actually surprisingly not far off from the 5-star. In terms of pH over here, it's reading about the same too, so it's in the ballpark of a 3. We'll update with the actual numbers there. But yeah, this was a very interesting comparison here between the 5-star and the Sacaton Citrumelo. These are both rather good grapefruit substitutes. They taste quite different, and it's hard to convey fully here. Dunstan is a little more traditionally grapefruity. It has some pomelo and lemon flavors in there, but if you're looking for a straight grapefruit replacement, Dunstan's your way to go. The next runner-up would probably be like a 5-star in terms of grapefruitiness. It's very similar, but it has a lot of lemon in it too. So it's kind of almost pushing towards Swingle, which is probably the most lemon-like of the Citrumelos. However, it's not quite there. It still has a lot of grapefruitiness to it. So it kind of goes like Dunstan, 5-star, Sacaton, then Swingle. Sacaton has a lot of good grapefruit flavor in there too, but there's some sour orange and other complexity going on in here, and it's a milder but juicier fruit. And the Brix still reads pretty good on there too. But also finding out how easy the fruit is to work with, you know, in terms of juicing or taking apart or, you know, using these components as you wish. I mean, I'm quite surprised, especially at this stage of ripeness. I'm surprised about that. But Sacaton's an impressive fruit. And considering it's a first-generation cross and it's relatively hardy, it's such a big fruit for that. You know, trifoliate orange is drastically smaller. One of the ones we tested, we're doing a comparison video, which may or may not be out, by the time this one is, between Poncerus Plus and normal trifoliate orange. And I think those fruit were reading between, well, I think they're reading around 80 grams, maybe a little less. This one's 400 grams. I mean, that is a massive fruit and the biggest we've tested, and it was the biggest before as well. And I think at that time I'd only read one that was around 350 grams, so I didn't even pick an exceptionally large fruit from this batch. It was a pretty average one, and it's reading 400, so that's pretty awesome to see. Other than that, I don't think I have a whole lot else to add to this. I think both of these are great fruits. I think 5-star is a surprising fruit and a unique addition, and I'm very happy to test a new Citrumelo, and it's not bad. You know, it would be nice to get more of these selections here. Dunstan and Sacaton were kind of your primary grapefruit substitutes. And Swingle was similar, but it kind of functions more as a lemon. You could kind of use it as a grapefruit, but I think most people look at it and use it more like a lemon. But in terms of 5-star, this is like a tiny grapefruit, basically. You know, it's like an orange-sized grapefruit, which is kind of fun for juicing, too. This will fit nicer instead of having to dice it up into pieces. But now we will show you the scores. So you'll see the official score sheet here and what we thought of each of these fruit. I imagine both of these will do fairly well. I don't know exactly where they're going to rank, but they shouldn't be too far off from where Dunstan is, I don't think. Dunstan is one of the better hardy citrus, but these really aren't far off in their respective areas. So that's all I have on 5-star and Sacaton. I hope you guys enjoyed this comparison. Do look forward to, if we have good success, 5-star in the spring. I'm going to try and graft some out and also grow some from seeds, so we'll have a little bit of both. Sacaton will be available pretty much as usual, and we're always growing out unique open pollinated seedlings from this one, so I'm excited to see if we get any more from this batch. But thank you guys for watching as always, and I will see you in the next cold hardy citrus taste test. Bye bye.